Ms. Russell has 3 pending charges with our office. The first had an arrest date of January 17th, 2023 on a possession of cocaine charge. She has attorney Jack Barnes on that charge. Subsequently, on November 28th, 2023, she was charged with shoplifting under the enhancement statute. She did not appear. A bench warrant was issued February 24th, 2023 for failing to appear at her second appearance. She is here now. She's been picked up on a bench warrant, but when she got picked up, because she was arrested April 3rd on a breaking and entering a motor vehicle charge. So now we have 3 sets of charges. I know Ms. Timmons was on it. I believe Mr. Barnes has stepped in for their office. We're here on defense counsel's motion to lift the bench warrant. I'm in a bit of a unique situation because Mr. Young presented himself as the attorney of record on the shoplifting charge. I had spoken to Mr. Young about a consent order. I believe that Ms. Russell has a bed waiting for her at an inpatient drug treatment program. Pearls of Wisdom, Pearls something. But anyways, I had said that we could consent to lift the bench warrant if she could be released directly into her mother's custody, go directly to inpatient drug treatment. But now I've learned that Ms. Russell does not wish to have Ken Young represent her. And indeed, Mr. Young said her mother was going to take her to the inpatient drug treatment program. But Ms. Russell does not wish to have Mr. Young represent her. Therefore, I assume she does not want her mother taking her straight to an inpatient drug treatment program.
Okay.
I don't know what the situation is, but she needs help, and she needs help with drugs, and she needs to be in an inpatient drug treatment program.
Well, let's hear from the sagacious Mr. Barnes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, where do I start? So here's the situation. Ms. Russell and Mr. Kwasinski, who's in the back of the courtroom, have a child together. And because Ms. Russell's family does not like Mr. Kwasinski, her mother has been trying aggressively to have Ms. Russell sign over her rights to the child to her mother. And as leverage to entice her to do that, she said, I will hire Ken Young to represent you and we'll take you straight to a rehab. Indeed, she convinced Ms. Russell that the only way the bench warrant for failing to come to her second appearance could be lifted was if she in fact went to a rehab. Ms. Russell's an adult. She did not hire Ken Young. She never talked to Ken Young. She never authorized her mother to take her to any sort of rehab. So I'm asking a couple of things, Your Honor. I'm asking, first of all, that you appoint me to represent her on the December charge for which she missed a bench warrant and for the new charge from last week.
I do.
Thank you. And then the second thing is, I'm just simply asking that Your Honor lift her bench warrant for failing to appear in February for her second appearance for the December charge. She did not have counsel. She was not aware of the date. I mean, the way those things work is at the time of the bond, they get a paperwork saying be here at this day. Honestly, if they don't have a lawyer, Your Honor knows that rarely do they appear for those second appearances. So I just simply want the bench warrant lifted. I'm now appointed to represent her and make sure she's here at all her court dates. So that really is all we're asking for.
Ms. McFaddin?
Whatever the court deems appropriate. I mean, if a mother wants to help her daughter get into inpatient drug treatment, I think it's a great thing, but I mean, I'm not Ms. Russell and she can make her own decisions, but we're looking at 3 sets of charges.
All right, there you go, Mr. Barnes. Mr. Barnes?
Thank you, Your Honor. Appreciate it. And I'll do Your Honor's work.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome you to, again, another episode in addition to our Tuesday Talks. Again, Tuesday Talks came from and started from just wanting to be able to inform and educate District 3 in Williamsburg County about what's going on in our backyards. Today I have a special opportunity to interview and just have conversation with some law enforcement and sheriffs within Winsburg County, and just to give information and shed light on a few important topics. Again, we want to thank last week's guest, Mayor Charlie Fulton, for giving us his time and his thoughts of District 3 and lanes and how we can move forward. So again, fellas, I want to open it up to y'all. I would like for you to tell me, along with the viewers, just a little bit about yourself. Sheriff, how long you've been sheriff, and pretty much what led you into law enforcement.
All right. So I'm Stephen Gardner. I'm sheriff of Williamsburg County. I started my law enforcement career with the King Street Police Department. Started as a dispatcher, taking calls to service and dispatching them out to the police to respond. From there, I really enjoyed what I was doing. I like getting out helping people. I like being able to move around. Sometimes staying confined is just not my thing. So I like being able to get out, talk, and converse with people, and provide services and help. So there, I started a career with the South Carolina Highway Patrol. And then from there, I decided that I wanted to be even more a part of what was going on in my community and making a difference. You know, sometimes it's easy to sit on the bench and give opinions about what you think one should do or what someone else should do, but it's a total different thing when you step out there in the arena and say, hey, you know what, we'll get off that bench and we'll be a player in the game. So I chose then to get out and run for sheriff, and today I find myself in my second term as sheriff, running to seek re-election in my third term.
So I'm Bernie Kelby. I started my law enforcement career off at Andrews Police Department. I did 10 years at Andrews. After I did 10 years at Andrews, I then transitioned, came to Winsburg County. Was afforded the opportunity to come here. Glad I made the decision to come here. After spending a couple of years here at Winsburg County, I was afforded the opportunity by Sheriff Gardner to be his chief deputy. During that tenure, same length of time that he's been sheriff, I've been his chief deputy, and it's been a wonderful experience. I decided to get in. My decision on getting in law enforcement is totally different from his. When I was in college, you had a college classmate of mine, which was a high school classmate of mine too as well, and we both decided to go to college for criminal justice, and we both said, I guess looking at TV, that we were going to go to college, be the police, and we were going to ride together in the car together, and we were going to drive fast and have a gun. But knowing that that wasn't what law enforcement was about, but as I got into it, I picked up the things of helping people and enjoying what I do, speaking with the kids, giving good advice, and continue to do the same thing.
My name's Archie Kennedy, Lieutenant of the Criminal Investigative Division at the Sheriff's Office. I got into law enforcement for a total different reason than the I went in a completely different direction in life. I was in the military for several years. When I got out, I wanted to make money. And I was pretty convinced the best place to make money was in the business world. So I ended up in the medical side of the business world for a number of years and just didn't like it. There's no nice way to put it. It just didn't suit me. It didn't suit my personality. And I actually tried law enforcement on an absolute whim and never grew up wanting to be the police. During that period of time, I began to talk to law enforcement officer friends of mine, and I found out that there was a school resource officer position open in Hemingway. And I ended up becoming the school resource officer to start my career for Hemingway High School, Hemingway Middle School, and Hemingway Elementary School. I did that for just a few years and ended up at the sheriff's office, and I've been at the sheriff's office for over 13 years now. And it was one of those things, if I had known that getting into it, to put that type of investment into it, it would have been better if I'd have done it as a younger person. At the same time, I'm not sure I'd have had the maturity level to be a police officer when I was a young person. I had to go through some growing pains in life. So the one advantage to waiting later for me turned out to be I had some life experience to bring into law enforcement. But I'm getting to that age now where we start thinking about retirement, and I hope to be able to do that someday. That would be very nice.
That's a lot to unpack. What year at Hemingway?
I was at Hemingway from 08, I think it was school year of 08, 09, 9, 10, and then half of the fall semester of the 2010, I think was those years.
Okay. So we have a Hemingway connection there, so you know that community and seen it firsthand. But how many years experience total?
Right at 27.
21.
16.
So we have a wealth of knowledge.
You talking about here in the sheriff's office?
No,
Total.
total. You
Total
did.
years law enforcement.
16.
Okay.
And you had 10 at Andrews and
11. This will make 11 here.
Andrews, part of Andrews is District 3, so we have a connection there. And I can remember being a young boy when you were starting out at Andrews as well. So again, for the viewers, so that you all know, there's a lot of experience up here, and the questions that we're going to be asking tonight. Feel free to ask questions, but again, something I want to go to what Mr. Kennedy said about maturity in law enforcement. I think that's very important with life experience, just knowing how to handle certain situations. But when I first asked you, Sheriff, I want to thank you because I asked you this probably about a month ago, and you don't question, you didn't give no hesitation. You liked the sound of it, and I told you what it was around. And again, I think since that conversation, some things have happened in our community that was tragic, and why we need to be having this conversation. So to go into my second point, the second question, we have several incidents, what we would say is pretty much involving kids and children. And we have lost some young people in these situations. How do you think we can inform people and help our community when it comes to these violent incidents?
So for me, I don't think there's a one conclusive answer. Sometimes we look at things and say, this is the definite answer. I think it's a culmination of things. So I think one of the things is teach communication. We no longer teach communication. Anytime on phones, other electronic devices doing things. So we don't necessarily get out and learn how to communicate with each other. We don't go outside, ride bicycle, and play in the manner that we once did or we knew as kids. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't allow for interaction and problem resolution. I think if as a community we come together, sometimes we look at issues of violence that's occurring and say it's just a law enforcement responsibility. And that's not the case. It belongs to each and every one of us. If the issue is believed to be solved by just one entity of the police, that's not going to happen. We have a role. We as a community can come together and solve issues. And I think some of it is we've got to get away from sometimes the traditional scenario of addressing things and understanding people. If we think that always we come to a setting and I can talk to you, trying to meet the people that we're trying to get involved in to change things where they're at. So, they're not going to be out and come to sit up and say, well, I'm going to put this podium up and then I'm going to speak to you. I think one of the great programs that is going, that I ask anybody, if you want to see something that's happening, I think that works, but it's not the loudest spoken thing. And that's in Hemingway. And that's where they get people that are in the communities. And they have ministers and people in different roles involved. And I think when you talk about community leaders fall in a versatile group of roles, not just one single thing. And they walk around to the classes of kids at the school and they're seen. They don't necessarily say something, but they're seen. The first thing you got to build is trust. So if you just think that someone's just going to instantly trust you, that's not going to happen. But they slowly build a relationship, and as those kids see different people in the community coming in, they know that you're holding them accountable because, hey, they're coming to school. So I think it's things like that that's going to help us change gun violence. But I think it takes us as a community working together. That's just a summation. I mean, I can see probably talking about it for a while.
I respect that answer, and I love it because one of the reasons, me and my brothers founded a nonprofit where we mentor young boys from 9 to 17. It's for that very reason. Right. When I went into education and teaching, right. A wise lady told me, the kids don't want to know how much you know until they know how much you care. Right. And I do believe, like yourself, I'm not complainer or someone that's going to give a lot of issues and not try to be part of the solution.
Sure.
And I look at tonight as being an example of me trying to do my part to help my community, because I've experienced some things within my community that these young kids are carrying guns out here, and in coaching I've had kids to say some unlikely things and apologize within 3 minutes. So I know just the emotional intelligence of, so now you give them a gun and bad things happen off of temporary emotions.
Sure.
So again, I do agree that trust is very important. So also to ensure in our community, I agree with you. I think it's not a law enforcement thing. I think it's a village thing.
Right.
So do any of y'all would like to, I guess, piggyback on that Hemingway program or what they have going?
Yeah, I think that's a good thing that they're doing too. From time to time, I've participated in that with getting over there and walking through the schools, and you'll be surprised of. I don't have a big connection with the Hemingway area, but the individuals that walk around that area, walk through that school, you can tell because the kids will see them and they recognize them, and even the ones that are walking, the pastors or whoever the community person is, and they go up to them and they speak and they're smiling. And then you hear the other kids are like, who's that? And they're telling them who they are. Even with walking through the middle school and the high school, they also do the elementary school. And so now you got the little ones and just going through there. And then of course when they're seeing one of the ladies that she's the manager of Burger King, or you should hear the comments, oh, I want this, I want that. She works at Burger King. When they see a law enforcement officer, oh, you the police, and the hugs that you get just from the little ones coming up. That's what you need. You don't need them to be scared. You want them to be able to come up to you and be able to talk to you, be able to touch you without someone saying something negative or them being scared.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a good thing that they're doing too as well.
Yeah, and me being a faith, a Christian, I see a lot of the clergy, the pastors and stuff. We're going to the schools in Hemingway, and I think I think that's a place for us to start as well. With the church being part of that community to help turn us in the right direction. Also, what are and any question I ask is any of you feel free to answer it. What are some preventions or precautions you all have in the sheriff department to try to prevent some crimes? And again, I ask because everybody are in their own bubble. They're not necessarily may see the work you all do when no one is watching.
One of the things that I learned early on in law enforcement was from the educational aspect. I had the opportunity not just to watch the kids from a school resource officer position. I watched educators, how they went about their job every day. And one of the most interesting things that I found in dealing with the youth is if you try and make the opportunity, even if it's something criminal involved with a youth, if you try to turn it into a teaching experience versus a legal experience, process experience, you got a better return from that. And what I mean by that, not only did I see that the students would respond better to let's make this a teaching moment, it also gained the favor of the parents, who then you could help educate them and say, okay, if you have a value system at home, you got to enforce it early in life. You've obviously got one, it's some standard, your religion might be a little different than mine, your raising might be a little different than mine, but you have some sort of value system that you can build upon. Enforce it early in these young people's lives. Don't let it slide early. Because unfortunately, if you let it slide early, it does develop that attitude that I'll skate by. And then that creates these series of bad decisions. And in those series of bad decisions, the poor results usually get larger and larger. I had the misfortune recently of talking to a young man that is charged with some very serious crimes. And he wasn't trying to walk away from those crimes. He was manning up to it. He was owning it. And I pulled him aside and I said, young man, I can tell you 6 bad decisions you made that particular day alone. Any one of those 6 opportunities could have stopped and prevented from what ultimately happened at the end of that day. The following day, that young man requested to speak to me, and he said, I've never thought of it that way. Was given 6 separate opportunities that could have prevented from this bad result that is now a life-changing event for this 19-year-old man. And I think us as adults, as leaders within our community, if we simply could understand and try and every opportunity turn it into a teaching experience. When they're young, we'll all have a lot less contact with them. We'll hear of less of these things happening that are, some of them are deadly. We can't miss on it. When you see that chance, turn it into a teaching experience.
Well, I think that's very important because I do believe that education and being educated is power.
Yeah.
So again, when you turn those moments into teaching moments, it's only going to make for a better citizen, better father, better mother, just a better community member. So I really, y'all have any?
For crime prevention? We do. So I think when we look at dealing
done, it's been good as we've got SROs in the school. Everybody, not all police officers need to deal with students. And that doesn't make them bad police officers, just everybody's sometimes different. You know what I mean? Especially in how they deal with things. It goes back to that word maturity. But again, I think that's important to start building relationships of trust, to talk to us. Just like what Archie was talking about a minute ago, when it comes to decision making, it's important to have someone there that can tell you, hey, let's look at the decision making. Let's look at the consequences of what you do, because so many young people don't know the consequences of their actions. They follow what they see. We follow the social media stuff and the things that we see for entertainment, and then we think we live that out. And then when we deal with the consequences, wait a minute, I didn't realize that. Some of the other things we do. We have a public relations division that keeps the public abreast of what we're doing. Sometimes, it's hard to, especially with the staff levels that we have, to maintain some presence and keep the community up to date as to what we're doing. One of the things that I've always believed in is that the media controls the minds of the masses. It puts a strong influence. It may be subjective, but it puts a strong influence out there. And so we try to make sure we maintain a presence of that so people know what we're doing at the sheriff's office, that we're out working. So that way, it's not, well, I ain't doing nothing. The other thing we do is we maintain community patrols. We look at where our problem areas are and we get out in those communities, and we maintain community patrols by being visible. Sometimes people say, well, hey, y'all got those steady blues going or flashing blue lights, that's deterrent. Well, we want to deter crime. We want to be seen. Because one of the things that happens a lot of times, if you don't turn them on, well, I don't ever see nobody. Well, at night time it's hard to see us, but if we create something that allows you to know we're there, and we want you to know we're there, if that stops something from happening, that's the whole point of it all. Yeah. So we do things along those lines. It may be something that Vern might want to add on.
Oh no, I agree with you.
And on that, I was asking around. Let's speak on pretty much just numbers and powers. How many positions that you have open right now at the sheriff? Because I know everyone, I think we talk firefighter, sheriff department, everyone numbers are kind of down, so we definitely want people to know and maybe what they can do to qualify or apply.
All right, so we have 16 vacant slots, and then we have 3 people that are out on work-related injuries. So that puts a challenge out there. One thing I can say, I think that and I think Archie and Bernie agree, I think we've got a strong team that has really stepped up to the plate. Oftentimes we can point fingers, but pointing fingers doesn't bring a solution to that issue. That's a challenge that came about slowly. It didn't just get created. We slowly got ourselves there, and I think that it's good that we work together to try to solve those issues. So I think it is good that attention is brought to that, but I think the right attention needs to be focused on that. And that is, again, us coming together to solve that issue. I think Archie termed it one day, and I agree with the terminology. We could all dig ditches and get on our side of the ditch and say, well, hey, I'm going to stand over here and I'm going to fire from here and tell you this is this. But I think what it does take is us working together, and I think we can solve that issue. And I think the more that people engage us and we have positive interactions, more people will apply. And as things changes, I believe that things will get better as time progresses.
And again, I thank you for the trash cleanup we had in the Half Acre community, just to prove a point. When the sheriff came up, my two nephews are 9 and 8. They was like, "Don't take me to jail." That was the first thing he said, and they said, and he was like, I'm not here to take you to jail, and that's not my job. So again, that interaction now, they're up and close and personal, with law enforcement. So it disarms them, and they now don't see it as the good guy or bad cop, that whole thing.
Sure.
So getting into, I guess, the biggest topic or issue that we're now looking at in the United States, but we'll stick to South Carolina, this new gun law. The open carry, can you unpack that or explain what does that necessarily mean for?
So that's a lot, man. I tell you what, there's a summary of about 96 pages just to explain some of what the open carry or constitutional carry law or act speaks about. I think there's a lot that we still have to work through. But in essence, we'll sum that up, and I'm sure we'll get into some other things that we talk about here. It allows someone to carry a weapon, no longer has to be concealed, no longer requires that someone attend any type of training as long as you're 18 years of age or older. So it allows you to carry that weapon in any place that you can lawfully be, or there's not a sign that prohibits someone from carrying, or the statute of law says that you cannot carry a weapon inside of that facility. So I guess that's a good summation of it. There's probably a lot of different aspects of the law that we could get into. Yeah.
So, and this is 18 that
That's
you
correct.
can carry. So, for some businesses or private businesses, what does this signage or need to say, I guess, to pretty much say, you can carry a gun in here, in your waistband?
Right. You want to address that?
Yeah. So what we did is we like to reference people to what the state law states on that. So with section 2331, 235, subsection B of the South Carolina Code is amended to read, all signs must be posted at each entrance into a building when carrying a concealed weapon is prohibited, and must be clearly visible from the outside of the building, 8 inches wide by 12 inches tall in size, contain the words "No concealable weapons allowed" in black 1-inch tall uppercase type at the bottom of the sign and centered between the lateral edges of the sign. Also contain a black silhouette of a handgun inside a circle 7 inches in diameter with a digital line that runs from the lower left to the upper right at a 45-degree angle from the horizontal. Also a diameter of a circle and placed no less than 40 inches and no more than 60 inches from the above of the building's entrance. Now I know some are probably saying, what in the world? But again, like I said, it's in section 2331, 235, subsection B. 23, 31, 235, subsection B of the South Carolina Code of Laws, and it gives you those elements of what you need.
And I asked
time.
that question because honestly, it's me being a business owner, or and someone to the public, I wouldn't. Someone come in your place of business with something on their waistband. They come in to pick up a hot dog or a drink. Can just be a little alarming. And again, some people don't know their rights in a sense, to not have that in their place of business.
Right.
And I do believe, but again, at 18 you can't go buy a gun though, right? But I tell you what, can we finish up something on that point by Bernie reading the statute? I think that's important, and I'll tell you why, that we read it just as it is, because the law prescribes what that shine should look like and how it should be done. So technical aspect, we always wonder, how did something happen? So we charge someone, or someone comes to your place of business and they see a sign that's yellow and it reads no weapons, just using an example. And
it's in very, very
Small.
small print, and the person says, well, I don't have to comply with that sign because it doesn't meet the statute of law.
23.
And then now someone came there and they charged someone with that, or they did something to present that now has a case in court. You're going to have a problem because the technical aspect's going to come back to that statute of law, and they're going to say, well, it does sign meet what the statute of law prescribes it should be. And if the answer to that is no, then you're going to 9 times out of 10. I'm not a judge, and I'm not here to present myself as an attorney. But at the end of the day, you're 9 times out of 10 going to have a case that's not going to move forward in court, or it may be no prost or some other form of fashion adjudicated without it being prosecuted. How about that?
So pretty much that sign has to be
Correct.
like described in 2331, 235.
That's
So it should be. Okay. And you see those type of signs all the time.
And I'll tell you this, I think one of the things that the statute says, it says no concealed weapons. So, sometimes we got to watch even when we change the language to say, well, I look at it to mean no concealed weapons just means you can't conceal it. So I needed to say no weapons allowed. Well, that's not what the statute says. In the statute, it in turn says that these things still apply to the fact even if you open carry it, conceal it, any form of fashion that you choose to present that weapon. So that wording needs to stay the same as prescribed in the statute.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Because again, you can't conceal. You think, oh well, long as I got it, this don't pertains to me. Okay. That's some good information to know. To the 18-year-old or just that dynamic, because my thing is, I think now to get cigarettes you got to be 21. So I don't see a 18-year-old being able to buy a gun, but you can buy a cigarette. So is that the actual law? Can an 18-year-old go purchase a gun? Can't be, right?
No, 21.
Okay.
There's a federal statute requires the 21. However, this law does permit the 18-year-old to carry it. So I guess the theory, Ben, is you have a nephew and you want to gift him a gun. He's 18 years old. There's nothing wrong with you gifting him a gun, and there's certainly nothing unlawful about him carrying that gun as long as there's no other issue that would prohibit him from carrying that gun. I think that's one of the more vocal disagreements with this law. We're not here to critique the law. We're here to enforce the law, but we're citizens too. We live in this community, even though we're charged with enforcing it. I don't think you would find many officers that are just abundantly happy about the current writing of it. There's some concerning aspects to it, but at the same time, as the law's written is the way we'll try to enforce it. And I think that's what the sheriff was saying. Even on the signage, if it's incorrect, I don't think we could enforce, even if a business owner called us and said, hey, I asked this gentleman to not be here. I think for us to enforce the statute, if that sign's not to and it's very specific specifications, I don't think we could enforce. I think a business owner would look at us kind of sideways, and I'd probably be looking at sideways too, to be real honest with you. But I don't think we would have a leg to stand on to enforce that statute if the signage is not very specific to what he just. I think that's probably the reason he read it. And I'm going to confess today, I was honest with both of them today. I did not know what the specifications for the signage was. So that's the reason you probably see me pull my phone out, because I screenshot it. I said, you know what, no one's going to ask me walking in now. Here, I got it right here for me and you to look at together, because I did not realize how specific those instructions were in the statute until the three of us were discussing it today. And I said, well, I'm not going to get caught short again. I'm going to know from this day forward.
I'm sure there's someone on Amazon selling the right specifications.
Probably so.
So, because again, I still can't get past can buy it, but can carry it at 18.
That's right.
So, and it wouldn't be nothing wrong if someone gifts their nephew of 18 a gun.
That's correct.
As long as they are not prohibited for another reason.
Like a law.
For example, they've had an unfortunate domestic violence conviction or something.
Right.
If they can legally possess it, I see nothing in that statute that would prevent it.
So I hate to say this. So a parent can actually go buy their 18-year-old a gun for their protection, and they're, long as, like you said, long as they don't have no charges, no criminal record, anything, that child can carry that gun.
That's right.
And what's the most alarming, no required training
No
whatsoever.
training.
It's very scary to me, yes.
No training.
No training. Well, the one thing I think you would find from at least the police officers I know, the CWP program, the concealed weapons program that essentially this supersedes, for lack of better terms, there was a training element there. You had to go to a certain amount of hours training with SLED qualified firearms instructors. They didn't just teach you the law, you literally had to get on the firing range and exhibit the ability to safely operate that handgun. I think that's one of the more concerning things. I don't see where, and if y'all read it, did you see anything in it where there's a requirement of training at all? I just don't see it there.
No.
Yeah, don't see any requirement.
Unless you plan on carrying a weapon out of state. So
Correct, reciprocal.
Goes to my next question.
Yeah.
So it does prohibit it, and is that a state-to-state thing, or just flat out, if you're going to another state, you have to have this training?
Yes. So if your state that you're going to is in reciprocity with what our weapons training act is, then yes, you're fine. So let's say, for instance, North Carolina. North Carolina is an open carry state. We are. You say, well, it's just open carry. I'm gonna cross the border because hey, they just like we are. But you're a resident of South Carolina. You're gonna need that weapons permit training in order to carry that weapon in North Carolina.
So you can, in your state, you can Wild Wild West, but you can't take it north. Okay. All right. I think that. So I hope y'all at home are taking this in. This is very good information and things we need to know, because just thinking commonly, that cannot be the case, as we can see. But in the community, and you being the sheriff, and you all in the community itself, what do you think? Because you both have years of experience within Williamsburg County. What do you think we can do? And I say we because I believe it takes a village. I believe it takes a community. What can we do to boost the pride and the love within Williamsburg County, and just also to District 3? We talked a little off camera about just knowing some landmarks. So I know you all are familiar with District 3. Just from your perspective, just boost morale and pride back.
One of y'all want to go first?
I'll feed off.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll answer that question. I was going to give let someone have a different input there. I think Williamsburg County is a great county. We have our challenge. Yes. One of the things that I think sometimes we need to reevaluate and refocus. And I like to say sometimes you got to stay focused. But we learn to say, well, we ain't got this and we ain't got this and this ain't right and we need to do this and this, that, and the other. Stop talking in that manner. If we speak in negativity, we're going to be in negativity. But the more positive you are, then you can contribute something, because you're going to figure out how to stay positive. And I call it staying on your vision. If you get sidetracked into everything that's negative, you can't stay focused on your vision, because you're over here trying to figure out how I'm going to solve everything that somebody's bringing to me. Well, you need to do this and you need to do this. You can't do all those things. But once you get a vision and you stay on that, you can move forward. So I think it's a great county. I think if we start realizing the treasures that we've got here, we're unique in who we are. We're a rural county. We're not Florence. We're not Georgetown. We do have a certain aspect to the tourism industry, I say, when it comes to hunting and fishing and I guess the sportsman life. We're not Clarendon and we're not Berkeley, but we're Williamsburg. And so when we find and we expand upon the value of what we have here, we got great people here. But when we start finding the value in that and expanding upon that, I think we can move forward. But I think that takes some unification too. And the more we unify and value each other on all ends of the spectrum, sometimes we look at things, and we say, well, I just need young ideas and I just need these ideas. We need all ideas, because it goes back to we need energy and we need maturity. And in between all of that is where it falls, where you got somebody like myself. I'm not gonna say I'm old.
Very well said. It's very well said.
You know, I don't mean to make everything an analogy, but if my wife came and says, hey, we need to make this room brighter, you know, the first idea that might come to mind is, okay, we need to get better lights. We need to paint, instead of have dark paint on the walls, we need to put lighter colored paint on the wall. We need to make our curtains, instead of dark curtains, we need to make them light, thin curtains where more light can come in. The point I'm making is kind of what the sheriff said a while ago. There is no one answer. It's multiple answers. But if I had to get down and say percentage, it still goes back. We have got to, as adults, mentor. We have got to turn this into teaching experiences. Don't pass it. You've said it a couple of times already. It takes a village. That is not just a saying. If you see a young person, there's a right way to correct them. And most kids, if they see your tone is right, and they see that your approach is right, and you know, they'll respond to that. And even if they don't completely understand it, it'll plant a seed for the next time. And you know, we have got to understand teaching character is just as important as teaching math, and teaching character is just as important as teaching. And just don't miss an opportunity. When you see an opportunity to make even the slightest suggestion, it might not fix that particular issue, but again, it might plant a seed to where we don't have these series of bad decisions just over and over and over.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Cumby, you have anything?
I would just add one thing, and I was just sitting here thinking about it, and I heard it twice within like a span of a couple of days. And I agree with what was said on it. It's like, don't bring a problem and don't bring a solution with it. We quick to bring a problem, but don't bring a solution. That's heavy. That's heavy right there now. You know, and after hearing that, I heard it the first time, and I was like, well, down. Then I heard somebody, like I said, within the next couple of days, said the same thing. Don't bring a problem and don't have a solution. Everybody brings a problem, but not too much people have a solution for it. So if you come with a problem, come with a solution too. Don't always be negative. And that stuck with me, you know, and I'm like, you know, yeah, if I go someplace, I don't need to be saying, hey, this is this, this is this. I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to say, well, hey, I got this as a solution. Let's look at trying to do this. Let's look at trying to do that. And I think if we get a lot more people to bring solutions with it, not all solutions people are going to agree with, but at least you brought something to the table. And we need to be ready to take criticism for our solutions, what we bring, because, again, everybody's not going to have the same solution. Sheriff might have a different solution than I have. Archie might have a different solution than both of us. Who's to say that none of our solutions won't work? I mean, hey, we might all got a different solution, but at the end of the day, is it going to get the job done? Yeah. Most likely it probably will.
And it's funny, but just 30 minutes ago, I was talking to some people from the community, District 3 and District 4, and I said, I think in life, anytime you're not looking at the glass as half full versus half empty, you're going to live, to me, a miserable life, because things aren't going to always be the right way or just be perfect. So you have to look on the bright side of things. So that's something I truly believe in, and also something the sheriff said just within myself of the focus. I think a lot of times we get caught up in trying to out so many fires, and we lose focus on, again, our solution may be different, but we got to understand that we all have the same end goal. Right. And that's a better Winsburg County, that's a better District 3. So that focus, I think, is to figure out these fires, make them what are the priorities, what are the demands, I think, like you mentioned, like in your high violent areas or whatever, and you try to keep bodies there. So again, I agree with that totally, that focus of, out in one fire at a time as a community. So I'm all for that. I think one last thing, because for me coaching, young youth kids or coaching high school kids, I believe a saying that I heard that you can tell a generation by how they treat their seniors and the opportunities they provide for their youth. What do you think to boost the morale of just the young people within our community to help? Because again, I believe education is power. How can we better bridge that gap, like you were pretty much saying.
Gotcha. So, can I back up one thing before we get to that question? There's one more thing I wanted to cover about. I know we got a time limit.
No, I appreciate it. This is.
Oh, go ahead.
If you good, we good.
Yeah, there's one more thing I wanted to cover about the weapons stuff, and I think this is very important because we get these calls all the time. And I know when we were talking about the issues with the change in the gun law, that is, we get the call of there's someone in my community that has a weapon on their side, and they're standing on the side of the road, and I want law enforcement to respond. Well, what are we responding to? Because that's not unlawful nowadays. Now, if that park or something has some signage that says, no concealed weapons allowed, then of course that's an issue we can go address. But if they're in an area that they can lawfully be, and they have a weapon on their side that's visible to the public, then of course there's nothing that we can do. There's nothing illegal there. And sometimes you may hear, well, nobody came out. Well, one of the things that we do nowadays is, oftentimes you can send officers into situations and there's not an illegal situation that you're sending someone to, so now they're just trying to investigate and something goes wrong. And then now that officer's life has changed because they were just trying to do their good deed, but something went wrong for something that was perfectly legal. So I think one of the things that I would like to say that we try to express to people, but a lot of times when we meet them at calls for service for something like this, their emotions are involved. So sometimes they don't even hear what we're saying to them. They just want to know why you can't do something.
Yeah.
But if you see someone with a firearm, know that it's not illegal to be on the side of the road walking with it. Now maybe they might be walking in the road and maybe intoxicated, but it's important if you call that in to say to us that person appears to be under the influence, or that person has the firearm in their hand and they're waving it around saying, I'm going to shoot somebody, I'm going to shoot somebody. Now we know we may have a psychiatric issue to deal with. But it's good to articulate to us because in this same constitutional carry, it does not allow law enforcement officers just to come up to you and say, hey, just because you got a gun on your side, I need to see your ID because I need to know who you are, because I need to know whether you can carry a weapon or not, whether you're a felon. I can't do that. Now, if I've got the ability, I know some things about someone and I'm certain of that, that's a different story, that I may know for sure someone's a felon. But, that's a lot of information to retain and to be accurate about, that you just 100% knew this thing about somebody. So, I wanted to make sure that we talked about that. I don't know, Vernie or Archie, if y'all had anything y'all wanted to say in regards to that.
Just to piggyback on one thing, there's a thing called reasonable suspicion. And a person with a gun now is not reasonable suspicion to approach them. We've got to have more. They're swinging the gun. So if you feel like you're calling it into 911, articulate to that dispatcher what you feel like that crime is being committed. Because again, it's kind of like that sign. We're here to enforce the law, whether we agree or disagree. And we cannot just approach a person if there's not something articulatable, a threat to the community. And we as common sense folks said, well, wait a second, that's just not done. Well, unfortunately, whether we like it or not, we got to enforce it the way that the statute's written. And that's the only thing I would piggyback on it. A possession of a gun now is not enough for me just to approach it.
Weston.
Yes.
And everyone at home, please share this, because again, I have older people or more seasoned people in my family. And I know those calls y'all will be getting be coming from, because they're used to, that person got a gun. They calling it in. Well, mama, auntie, that's perfectly legal at this point. If he's not, like you said, threatening no one, I guess, waving it, it's okay to do so. So again, just to touch on the young people in just politics and just trying to keep that build that bridge, because again, I'm committed to do whatever I can on my end, and I've seen through experience y'all are too, just by having this conversation tonight. But again, that'll be my last thing, and I think we'll pivot to some questions that we're coming in online. But again, just the young people and trying to keep them engaged.
So I would encourage them. Oftentimes we look and say, I think one of the easier things is that, well, the police is not doing their job. I encourage them, what you were talking about a minute ago. get involved in politics? How do you make a difference with something? How do you change this? I think the delegation members are committed to, we're going to have to do something to adjust some things in this constitutional carry. But if you're not involved in what's going on and what's occurring and what your elected officials are doing, all of them, it's relatively easy to come speak to something, but hold us accountable. You think about a group or something, and how do we know we did something? We set out a plan and say, hey, this is my strategic plan. But then I need to know, how am I going to evaluate that? You know what I mean? So are you meeting what you're saying that you're going to meet? We can put stuff out there, but how did I meet it? You got to hold people accountable. And sometimes that just doesn't happen. But I think in order for that to happen, like I said, our young people have to see the relevancy in that and see that I can make a difference by getting involved. And by getting involved, it's not just a one-person ballot issue. With crime, most people look at that being a ballot issue that belongs to the sheriff. But if you look at it in that perspective, then you're never going to change anything, because that one issue doesn't belong to the sheriff. There's so many other people included in that, but you got to start involving yourself.
Just like this law.
Right. That's exactly right. So you got to involve yourself in that. When you start looking at bond reform, when you start looking at prosecution, when you start looking at what the statute actually says, again, I think that's why it's so important for our young people to get involved into our politics.
Any of y'all have any?
Oh, no, I'm good with that one.
The only thing I would add to that is the first time most people get any real experience with law enforcement, court systems, anything, is when they've done something themselves, whether it's a traffic ticket or something. We don't have people that walk in and know what decorum is for court, because we're not teaching them. And the only reason I bring it up is the only field trip that I can really remember right now that I had when I was in school is I grew up in Bishopville. And I guess it was probably 7th or 8th grade, I don't even remember now. They took us down to the courthouse. And on that particular day, of course, it's the first time I've ever been in a courtroom, and I'm a kid. They're selecting a jury. I don't remember what they were selecting the jury for. But I had some semblance, some idea. Most of the young people now, their first time they're in a courtroom, unfortunately, they're usually in handcuffs. Right. And how do we get there? I don't know. So I can't really answer to the politics side of it. But government, we got to teach them government in some capacity. They got to know what the systems are, what the processes are, and the more they know about it, I think the less they're going to want to be involved in it. And that may sound like a joke, but I think they'll realize, wow, again, those bad decisions. Man, I'm standing up here. I'm standing in front of a judge that don't know me. I'm standing beside an attorney that barely knows me. And there's 12 people sitting over there maybe making a decision on my life that don't know me at all. We've got to do a better job at teaching government, in my opinion. And I think that would get them involved in the civic side, just not from the criminal aspect.
I agree, because like I said, I don't think I'm going to have any problems with my nephews littering, being that they help me do trash cleaning.
Absolutely.
We have one question that's online. I think it was touched on, but I'll just read it again. Ms. Singletary says, so what if the person is underage, so what if it's an underage child? I've seen a few under 18 years old walking with him in plain sight. I think that was regarding the gun situation.
Yeah, so definitely the first thing I would do is call law enforcement, explain and articulate. A lot of times we make assumptions, but articulate that this is someone that you know that this child is 15 years of age, and that they should not have a gun on it. And now that gives us a reason to make contact, because the statute's clear. It says that, hey, if you're 18 years of age or older, but we're going to be acting upon information that we're going to say is legit and that we can trust. So you need to make sure you give us that. And don't be afraid to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I don't want someone to make contact with me there at the scene, but I'm going to give you my name and phone number. That's a good thing, because now we can hold accountable. Hey, this person saying, hey, I'm willing to tell you that this is what I gave you as information, and I'm willing to stand on it. I may not want someone to see you contact me at this point in time, but from there we can address that issue by making contact, because we're acting upon reasonable information to be true. Now, once we learn that it's not true, then at that point we'll have to take steps and say, hey, you know what? This person's 19 years of age. They've done nothing wrong, sir. We document our contact as the statute requires that we do now, and move on and document in our notes that, hey, we acted upon what we thought was reliable information. And in that, we're covered. Do y'all see anything different?
Oh, yeah, totally agree.
Nothing to add.
Totally agree.
That was the only question.
That's all we have so far.
All right. Before we go, I definitely don't. All is wealth the knowledge to leave the table without just giving us some nuggets of what do you see. Probably the value of leadership. You being an elected official, some that you probably built on yourself to get you to this point that you are now, and then to you guys of just what leadership looks like to you, and just some values that you hold near and dear each and every day in your walk.
So mine pretty much centered around two things. One of the things that I thought was a great word that I learned in basic was SERV, and that stands for selfless service, integrity, responsibility. The selfless service aspect of it is pretty much who Steve is. A lot of times people look for things to be about them. I think this job as sheriff is not about you. You know, you've got a role. Any day that this becomes about you, well, you might even say, I need to go home because I'm probably gonna get myself into something I don't need to be.
Right.
But I think, you know, it's about serving the public. That doesn't mean you're going to satisfy everybody, that everybody's going to like what you do, agree with what you do. There's going to be plenty of unpopular things. But I think as long as you stay committed, again, to what your vision is, you're going to be fine. I think humbleness is very important, because in doing this job, you're going to meet a lot of people that are in emotional states. Doesn't mean that they're bad people. It's just the day that you ran into them, they're in a very emotional state, and they're trying to get it together. And sometimes you're going to meet adversity. Sometimes you're going to meet people that just don't like you for some unknown reason that they really can't justify. Right. But at the end of the day, you can't allow that to make you deviate from what you're doing in your role. So, you know, you have to be humble and sometimes take the high road. And sometimes people may say, well, ain't no way I tolerate that. Well, if you're not going to tolerate some things, I think in this line of work, it might not be for you. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, you're going to have to take some things. I don't think you need to be abused. I'm not advocating that. But I think the biggest thing is to remain humble and to know that you're not better than anybody else out there. And that your job is to serve. And if you're going to get out here and do that, you know, I probably would say this, as Steve, I do a lot of non-traditional things. I think there's probably a large group that say, I've never seen a sheriff, I think T.Y. would agree with that, that doesn't do things in the manner Steve does. But I think if you stay in a traditional role, there's nothing wrong with that. But you've got to stay in the role of who you are. And then that is where you find success. So I stay focused on my vision. I can truly say that some things I do are probably non-traditional, but don't be afraid to be non-traditional. And I think in that you can find success.
So selfless service, right, was
Yes, sir.
in being humble. I think those that's actually my Instagram name.
Oh, Lord.
Humble. You know, something I truly believe in. You know, the humble, being humble. But
I look at I guess being who I am. I guess one thing that I look at and always think about is I go back to my old roots of what my granddaddy would always say to me, remembering things what my daddy say, remembering things now that my uncle would tell me. And it's always be who you are. Don't change for anyone. And as long as you are who you are, don't worry about who somebody else thinks that you are. With that being said is, hey, I don't look at myself and I don't go around and saying that, and this is not to knock on anyone, but this is just me. I don't go around and say that I'm Chief Deputy Bernie Cumbie. Somebody asks who I am, I tell them I'm Bernie Cumbie, because at the end of the day, that's who I am. I think if we go, and I think Sheriff alluded to some of this too, if you start looking at having titles, then you're looking at the wrong point of things. Because some people look at it as, if I got a title, then I'm gonna enforce things with my title. No, I want to let you know who I am, because at the end of the day, if I ask somebody to do something or instruct someone to do something, I'm not going to instruct them to do something that I wouldn't do myself. And then I put that out there because I show it too as well. Just like Sheriff said, is that, you know, you don't find him as a traditional sheriff. You don't find me as a traditional chief deputy either, because we both, you won't find Archie as a traditional lieutenant. I would definitely say that too, because we're gonna get out there and we're gonna do what we have to do. We're gonna work with our fellow team members. We're not out there to say that this is who we are, this is our rank, and you're gonna do this. My last thing is too, and I'll jump so Archie can get to this, is to always respect people, no matter how old or how young they are. I come across some younger kids and I'll tell them yes sir, yes ma'am, and then some of them are looking at me like, you older than me, why are you saying that? But it's just all about respect, because if you can say that to them and they see that you're saying that, maybe they can pick up on some of that too and start doing the same thing.
Yeah, man, that
was preaching.
Yeah,
it is.
And I'm proud, and I'll say it, I'm proud to be a part of Winsburg County and just know we have such fine law enforcement in the county.
I don't really, well, they didn't leave nothing left to say. I'm just going to be real. But humility,
yeah.
If you're in this particular profession for accolades, you are not going to be successful. You might get some accolades, you might get to hang something on your wall, but if that's what it's going to take to get you to stay motivated and stay involved and kind of plug along every day, I just don't see how people do it. You got to have some humility, and you got to kind of have that core value system. Okay, I cannot fix the world, but God may put something in front of me today that I can fix, and I'm going to take that chance to where I'm going to try and do good by it. And if that gives you the reward you need, then yeah, this is probably a field that you can be successful. I cannot take credit for what I'm about to say, but I don't know who to give credit to. But I saw a video very, very recently, and it was talking about the difference between a boss and a leader. And in this video, very shortly, it was a pack of wolves. And the boss of those wolves, there was one small hole on this frozen pond where it could drink water. And every time one of the other wolves come at it, he would bark at it and run them away. He was going to drink his water. And then all of a sudden, you seen who the leader in the wolf pack was. He was over there to the side trying to bust the ice, and he ultimately busted a spot in that ice to where the other ones could drink water as well. And that is the difference between a boss and a leader. A leader is going to make people around them better. They're going to afford opportunities for success. The sheriff used to say this in some of the speeches he used to give, and he might not appreciate me saying some of the things in his speeches, but he used to talk about force multiplying. And he weren't just talking about police officers. To multiply that force, to make it bigger, it's got to come from the community. You've got to be able to have the gift of gab and get out there and talk to people in the community and make them your ally. Make them understand that there might not be but just 25 of us, but we've got a community of 35,000. Let's make as many of them as we can our allies who support us and help us to where we can do our job. So I know that was your word, but I did give you credit for that force multiplier. Yeah. But you've got to do that through being able to just talk to people and empathize and sympathize. And recently a case came to me, and I told the victim, I said, well, I've got a lot of sympathy in this. I've been broke before in my life. And what caused that person to do what they did is they were dirt poor broke, and that's what motivated them to do it. They were contrite, and I told the victim, I said, I can have some empathy and I can have some sympathy for that. And you know what that victim turned around and told me? Says, you're right. And they're giving a person a second chance in life. And you've got to be able to say those things, because it may not work every time, but it may fix something. God may have put that one thing in your path that day. Okay, I can't fix the world, but I might can put a little force and a little action in this particular thing. The humility, like I said, they didn't give me a lot left to say, but you do have to be humble. If you go at your job as an arrogant person, people will spot it immediately, and that you will lose credibility with the public immediately.
Yeah. Man, you guys are ready for Good Morning America. Again, we have.
Yes, we have one more comment I want to read from Ms. Singletary first before that question. Ms. Singletary just says, this is awesome leadership in the Sheriff Department. What a great way to teach our youth. Seeing this in action, great analogy. Ms. Angela Fred asked this question: does the Sheriff's Office have a planned initiative to talk directly to young people about gun issues? Lots of meetings.
So that's something that we're putting together, and I think in that meeting, we've got more people involved than just the sheriff's office. And one of the things that we're looking at doing is involving the solicitor's office and involving our other law enforcement entities, along with some other people that I think that are integral in that equation, because it's just not tied to one person. That's an issue that we need to actually carry out. So we're trying to put that together so we can go out in the community and talk about these issues, because again, there's a lot of information in that Constitution.
And I'll also say, once y'all get that together, because like you said, it takes a community, and I'm extending my hand and my just the opportunity to help y'all facilitate that. Coming to District 3 or wherever in the county, like I said, I worked and coached in Hemingway, so Hemingway area, this area, I'm open to help y'all facilitate that in any way that I can, because I do believe it starts inside out. So being able to help y'all is big. So again, I want to thank you guys. When I asked Sheriff, when I asked you to do this, honestly, if you would have passed, I would understand. So I but I just had to ask, because again, I'm a solution-based person, and I don't like for something to affect me. Then now I want to to address it. I want to try to be on the right side of history and be ahead of things, so you can again try to get ahead of it and pretty much be proactive versus reactive to some things. So again, whenever you all, whatever I can do to help you all facilitate your goals and your missions, force multiply, I think what you said. I'm willing to do. But again, I think you all represent Winsburg County so well tonight, and I think, and I'm sure it's going to transition through social media and across the lens of just how dedicated you all are to the mission and to the job. And I think it all goes to leadership. If you a leader is only good as the people that help him pretty much lead and facilitate what it is in the mission. So again, I want to thank you guys. Please come back with us next Tuesday for Tuesday Talks. We will have Mr. Kerry Singleton Jr. Next Tuesday. Please tune in. Also, again, early voting starts May 28th to May 7th. Please vote yours truly, Randall Neesmith. Election date is June 11th. Please, again, a vote for Randall Neesmith is a vote for someone who's about advocating, communicating to enhance District 3. So you all have a good night, and thank you for tuning in.